Okay, now we're ready. Good morning. I'm Suzanne. I'm a horticulturist here at Rogers Gardens, and welcome to our Tuesday Live on Facebook and Instagram. This morning we're going to be discussing preparing your soil for planting. And it can be for spring, but it can be for any time of the year here in Southern California. There is never a bad time to prepare your soil for future planting. I told Marissa this morning, this is a very funny conversation. I want you to think of any questions, throw them down there as soon as you can, because each garden is different and each person is going to need to prepare a little bit more or less. And so I'm going to be using a lot of, if your garden is like this, then you might want to try that. But spring is usually the time that everybody wants to prepare their garden, and you're seeing all these beautiful plants and your neighbors' things. And so we're just going to move forward with starting kind of from scratch. Let's say you just moved into a house and you have just like this horrible jungle of a garden. So you're going to go in and you're going to cut everything back and you're going to prep it for amending. Again, this is such a complicated thing. Like if you're just living in a garden and you want to make it better, I can't even explain how funny it is to think about every different situation for amending your soil. But if you have weeds, kind of like just scrape them back, whack them back. Do not disturb your soil just yet. The thing about weeds is that there are kind of like dormant or latent seeds in your soil right now. And when you disturb the soil and maybe a little air gets on them or a little more water, then it will, the seed will sprout. And if there's seeds on the top of the soil and you dig up your soil a lot, they could also go in there and grow. So weeds, to keep them at bay, you want to disturb your soil as little as possible. But when you're amending, this is the time that you are going to be digging it up. So kind of get rid of those weeds. If you have a ton of weeds, you're going to want to cover your soil with cardboard or plastic for just like a week, maybe 10 days. It's really important not to do it for a super long time, because the heat that you are trapping in the soil will kill the weeds down to their roots, but it can also begin to start killing beneficial insects and organisms and things like that. So that's why you don't want to leave it on there for too long. Then you're going to take it off. Get your spade and you're going to start digging up your soil down to 12 is the best, but if you can only get down to 8 inches, that's fine. Start lightening up your soil. Just put the spade in and move it a little. Move over, move the spade a little. Just start loosening it up. And if your soil is hard as a rock, head on down to the hardware store and get yourself a soaker hose. The best way for you to lighten up your soil, make it easy to work with, is water. So of course it rained like crazy yesterday. It is a great day to go out and pull weeds, because your soil is going to be so much wetter, so much easier, so much lighter to pull those weeds out. So that's either soaker hose or a good rainy day is going to be your best time to have that soil be nice and light and loose to work. The soaker hose, you'll probably use it hours. Leave it out there for the whole day, as light as possible, no runoff whatsoever. Just have it soak right down, and then you'll be able to work your soil. It's I don't want to go too much into weeds, but that's going to loosen up your soil. So then what you're going to do, if you live here in Southern California, and this is going to be a pretty clay soil specific talk here, get yourself some gypsum. We sell gypsum here in a box. You can buy gigantic bags of it. If your soil is super clay-like, sprinkle that gypsum all over your soil once a week. Just keep doing it. It's going to slowly percolate down into the soil and break up that clay. We also have some soil building conditioner and some soils here that actually have clay in them, because they are really knowledgeable in the soil industry here in Southern California. We need clay in all of our amendments. So use gypsum. It's very inexpensive and it really does work towards breaking up your clay soil. It's not going to be instantaneous, but it'll help. So that's number 2-ish. So break up your soil, put that gypsum in there, and then you're going to put amendment. So the best amendment is this Malibu compost. We talk about it all the time. It is the best product for your money. It is super concentrated. So always have a bag of this on hand just so you can sprinkle it on top of your soil. That is going to feed your soil. It's going to feed your plants when you have healthy soil, the roots will open up better and accept the fertilizer better. So that, I can't say enough about this. So this is organic cow manure, and that's another good thing to remember. Organic products are much better, especially if you want to grow vegetables and things in your soil, and you also want to keep the soil healthier by not having additives that may have been given to animals. Chicken manure is a very popular additive right now. We have a lot of people asking about it, and it is a really good additive if you use organic. It's got to be organic. Chickens are fed a lot of weird things. You do not want that in your soil. Only organic, fully aged chicken manure. So just buy it already in a bag or in a box and use it very sparingly, because chicken and cow manure have a tendency to have a lot of salt in it. So if you get a mixed balance already, it's going to be much better than using pure chicken manure, which, you know, it's a really good food for your plants, but it has a tendency to have a little bit of salt, and we already have a lot of salt in our soil here. So there's that. Okay. Have I confused you yet? Is there anybody here still? Soil is easy and it's complicated. So if you only do one thing for your soil, Malibu compost twice a year, sprinkle it on top, let it work itself in. You can add mulch on top of it. You can use this as a mulch. You can put it in your pots, but just remember it is super concentrated, so you don't need a lot to help improve your soils. I'm gonna see how complicated this topic is. It can be very simple, and yet my notes are just crazy. So after you amend your soil, what you want to do, if you've taken all your weeds out and you've done everything, just wait for a week or two if you can before you start planting. Let your soil settle in. Any weeds that might be latent and ready to go, you can pull them out. Then you're going to plant your plants. I know sometimes you don't have the time for this, so just amend, plant, get going. It's great, but your soil health is it's actually more important than anything else. It's the foundation for your entire garden. So if you have no life in your soil, if you can look at your garden and there are no weeds and there are no earthworms or anything like that, that's going to tell you need to amend. Sometimes when you're using systemic products, it's going to get into the soil. It's going to maybe work its way through the plant, but it's going to kill things in the soil as well. And if you continue using them occasionally, you will have just absolutely sterile soil. It just is not healthy. It's not great to put plants in, and you'll end up having to use more fertilizer and more things to try and pump your plants up. So just try and think of your soil as just something you need to feed as consistently as your plants. Other things, if you're planting, say you're planting a bunch of gardenias or azaleas or camellias, you're going to use a soil amendment, like an acid-loving soil amendment. If you're planting things that are super water-wise and you really need to make sure that you have good drainage, you're going to be using cactus mix, which has a lot of pumice. It has a lot of sand to help with the drainage. Pull that water away from the roots and just keep the plant really healthy without that sitting in water. Now this one here, this soil building conditioner, this is kind of an all-in-one. It is a compost, it is core, it has it has the gypsum, but it is great if you have a lot of area to to break up and to improve. You can get big bags of this, the soil building compost. So it's basically this and your gypsum and your lightening things. It has beneficial mycorrhizae, which, if everybody's learning now, helps with all the fungi in your soil to help the nutrients be spread through the soil to get into the roots of the plants better. And this one here, This is a great product. It says Harvest Supreme. You would think that it's just for vegetables, and it is excellent for vegetables, but this is the one product, the soil that we sell, that does actually have chicken manure in it. So if you're looking for that sort of thing to help this, it helps break up your soil. So it's got the the gypsum in it. It's got the chicken manure, and it is a great soil amendment with a lot of compost in it. Okay, that's the simple stuff. Does anyone have any questions about their soil?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm so happy because clearly I did not hit all the points here.
Okay, the first question is, we had ton of earthworms in October, but now when I'm planting, I don't find any at all. Will soil amends help?
Absolutely. One of the soil amendments, which I didn't discuss over here, sorry, forgot that, is worm castings. This is basically just worm poo, excrement, but it is an excellent soil amendment. And when you have earthworms, they're going to make a lot of this, but adding more is not going to hurt. There's a ton of it in here. Your earthworms might be still waking up. I'm not sure if you're in Southern California. If you are, they're going to start moving a little bit more. If you need to add more earthworms, you can definitely do that. Adding compost will help. It's going to bring them in there because the compost will have some eggs. But you can always buy some earthworms, set them in there, and it's going to help a lot.
Okay. Gypsum is the best way to break hard soil down.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Okay.
It is the easiest way to just sprinkle it on there. It's a powder. Try and wear a mask or something, but just throw it on top of your soil. It's like when you're flouring the board to do your baking or something, just throw it down like that. Keep throwing it down. You can throw a lot of it down, but then you will see the white stuff, but you can water it in, and it really will do all the work for you.
Okay. What amendments do you recommend for container gardening?
So Malibu compost, absolutely. You can sprinkle this on the top, and if your plants have been in your pots for a long time, you might want to consider popping them out, kind of cleaning off the roots. If your plant is amenable to it, you might want to root prune it and then give it some fresh soil.
Okay. What is the best soil preparation for organic soil that had ants, black dots, and I think blight on recent plants? I am preparing to plant all my tomato plants.
Okay, so wait, let's repeat that one more time.
Yep. Okay, so what is the best soil preparation for organic soil that had ants, black dots, and blight? She is trying to plant her tomatoes.
Black spots, I'm guessing. Yeah. Okay, so is this, if you're planting your tomatoes in the same place you planted them last time and you had blight and you had black spot, you should not plant your tomatoes there unless you've gotten all new soil. The disease, you have to rotate crops because the diseases can linger for a long time. I would say take your tomatoes and maybe plant them in a pot, plant something else there that isn't susceptible to blight, and that's kind of the best thing. You can amend your soil, put some compost in there, but you could use some beneficial nematodes, but I wouldn't plant your tomatoes in the same place that you had a disease last time.
Okay. If your soil was left in a bag and is wet and smells somewhat moldy, can you still use it?
Absolutely. What you're smelling is earth. If it's moldy, that's beneficial. That's what soil does, and especially as the organic compounds break down. Remember that? Oh, I guess we weren't live when I said that one sentence, but I do love this one because it helps you recognize, like when you're doing a compost pile or using your own compost or something like that. It's when that soil breaks down, when the organic things break down. So even if you have a bag of soil, it's still breaking down slowly. Little bits of wood, little bits of chicken manure, little bits of core, and all these things. So they're going to break down and create beneficial bacteria, fungi, which is the stuff that you're seeing, and the nutrients. As long as it doesn't smell really weird, like if it smells earthy weird, that's good. But I don't know, maybe like if a cat used it for a litter box or something, that would not be good. But yes, you can definitely use it. Those white things, people open up soil and they see the mycorrhizae all over the top of the soil. That's really good. It's beneficial.
Okay. How does soil get grubs, the thick, fat, worm-looking insects? How do you get rid of grubs? And,
I hate grubs.
And what if you don't do anything?
Okay, so grubs are beetle larvae. They are disgusting and gross. I cannot stand them. When I'm gardening and I find one, I always shriek the first time. So they're kind of what happens. So beetle larvae, beetles lay their eggs in the soil, and this is what happens. So there are two ways to get rid of them. One is to grab them and throw them and feed them to the birds. That's my preferred method. I also use beneficial nematodes. And this is a very, very easy way to rid your soil of grubs. It's not going to be instantaneous, but it is organic and it works really well. So we sell those here. You can buy specific nematodes for grubs. So they're good nematodes, bad nematodes. Obviously, beneficial ones are good. We have them for fleas, we have them for fungus gnats, and we have them for grubs, but we also have just like a general one that's good for a lot of different things. So they are microscopic little organisms. They're in a sponge. They're inoculated into a sponge. You put it into water, and you can thin that water a lot. You can spray it, or you can just water your plants. Just walk along and just get that water in the ground, and then they will multiply, and they will eat the grubs. They will eat the grubs themselves. They will eat them when they're younger as eggs. So that's a really, really good, easy, organic way to get rid of your grubs.
Okay, do you need low nitrogen fertilizers for growing tomatoes? And if so, what kind?
Low nitrogen fertilizers? No, not really. I mean, tomatoes, they need the nitrogen to build up the plant itself. So the nitrogen helps with the green. And then it's so funny. David and I were talking about how I always get the NPK words mixed up. So you need the nitrogen to build up the green. Then you have the phosphorus, which is going to help it flower and fruit. And then the potassium is to help build good, strong roots. So with tomatoes in the beginning, you might use a little bit more of the N, the nitrogen. But basically an all-purpose fertilizer is going to be great because tomatoes are always working a lot. The one thing I want to say about tomatoes just really quickly as a soil amendment, because there are a couple of things that your soil can be deficient in. And it can be, you know, if you really have issues with your soil, you might want to take it and get it tested. We have a couple of places on our website, I think on our referral list. But so tomatoes, when you're planting your tomatoes, get some crab shell or oyster shell or some sort of thing with high calcium and roll your plant in it and plant it in the ground. Calcium is super important for tomatoes to not get blossom end rot, not have that calcium deficiency. So that would be, you know, an important thing with tomatoes, just kind of a side note. But the fertilizer, you can do an all-purpose to help it be nice and balanced, or you can push it a little bit on the potassium.
Okay. How often do you use beneficial, I think, nematodes? Yeah, thank you.
You can do it twice a year. Yeah, it's surprisingly, like when you first look at it and you see how little it is, it seems a little expensive, but it's super easy to stretch it a long way and put it through your entire garden. They really do proliferate, and even though they're microscopic, you can't really see it. You'll notice that the grubs will be gone.
Okay, that's all the questions we have for today.
Wow, that's cool. If you have more questions, because there is so much good information about soil, and again, you know, if you're just starting, it's a lot of work. So, you know, we just bought a house about a year and a half ago, and it had like concrete soil, soaker hose, gypsum, amendment. That's going to help. But if you're just working on your garden and you want to make it nicer for the upcoming season, compost is going to be your best friend. And don't forget to mulch. Mulching 2 to 3 inches of whether you're using shredded cedar, shredded redwood, or some of the other different mulches that are nice. It's going to help conserve water. It's going to help suppress weeds, and it's going to, oh my gosh, what's the third thing, Marissa? It's going to conserve water, suppress weeds, and it's going to make your garden look finished. I mean, it's just going to be beautiful. But that is, mulch is absolutely the finishing touch. Everything looks perfect. Okay, so that's it for us today. Sarah is here on Thursday. I would like to remind you that this weekend, and all through until May 8th, every weekend until May 8th, we're going to be doing talks here in the weekend. So if you're around, come on down, see Sarah on Saturday, me on Sunday. We're giving talks this weekend. I think we're doing 3 talks twice a day on Saturday and Sunday. They are all about culinary gardens. And David is going to be also talking about doing raised bed gardens. So culinary gardens, different kinds of containers, different sorts of plants that you want to do in there. So it's going to be really fun. And I believe we have, is it this weekend, Marissa, Valerie Rice? Mm-hmm. Valerie Rice is going to be here this weekend. So if you're a fan of hers, you're going to be super excited to hear her talk about her favorite things. So rogersgardens.com, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and all the other places, YouTube, to subscribe. Come see us there, and I will see you this weekend and then next Tuesday.